Hi y'all, this is Sheila, and today I'm working on canning all the meat that I bought. There is these chicken breasts, they're like 9 pounds, and then there's another, I guess, 9 pounds of ground beef. I'm going to start off with chicken because this is easier. What I do, how I do mine, there's many ways to do it, but I do raw pack, which means I'm cutting it up into little pieces here, and then putting it into my jars over here. These are brand new jars that have never been used, sealed at the factory, so I didn't like wash them or anything. And plus, whenever I get my chicken and my chicken broth, I'm in Dixie here, and it's going to boil for an hour and 10 minutes, so I'm pretty sure we're good there on the germ department. So now I'm going to pause the video and finish cutting up all the chicken, and then we'll go from there. Okay, hey, just a quick note is whenever you see things like this on your chicken, like big old pieces of fat, be sure to cut that off because fat doesn't work well in the canning process. I'm not sure if it is bad for it. It might make it go rancid more quickly, but it sure looks unappetizing when you go to open the can later on. So as much as you can, cut these little things off. I'm going through and I'm cutting these into basically 1-inch cubes. I'm using pint cups because it helps me to do portion control better. But so the 1-inch cubes, it works pretty well. If you want to look from the side, I'm not filling these all the way up to the top. One, because you're going to want to leave some head space for proper canning technique, and also because we're going to be adding chicken broth to this. So, in the magic of internet, now while you have been waiting that split second, all the chicken got cut up. And so, now, one thing to kind of be paying a lot of attention to is how the chicken is in the jars. It's not jammed down in there. I mean, you don't want a lot of empty space, but you do want to have a certain amount, because what happens is we're going to take this chicken broth here, or in Dixie chicken broth, and we're going to pour it in the jars, and we need it to get all through the jar because this is going to help make sure that all of our meat gets cooked. Okay, so we want to make sure you leave 1 inch of headspace, and an easy way to know that is if you look at the jars from this side, you see this bottom, where's my finger? There it is. See this bottom part of the jar where it screws down? If you put, that kind of roughly measures 1 inch of headspace. So if you fill the liquid up to this line, you can feel confident you've got your 1 inch of headspace. Now you want to make sure that all the meat is covered with chicken broth. Like in the case of this one right here, not all the meat is covered. So we're going to take this one and put it in a different one so that all my meat is covered. I'm going to put that, stick it over there. Okay, so anywhere else? We made all our headspace up. I see a few, they're a little short. Where'd it go? Where's the chicken broth? Okay, we'll add a little to that one. Add a little to that one. Okay. Alright, so now we've got all of our chicken and our chicken broth in our jars. It's possible in this process we drag chicken or broth across the rim of the jar. And it's super important that the rim of the jar be completely clean so you get a good seal. So what we're going to do to make sure we have a good seal is we're going to put some our Winn-Dixie white distilled vinegar on a paper towel and wipe off the rim of all the jars. So hold on while I do that. Okay, so now we've wiped all of our jars with our vinegar. We're going to put on our tops. This is actually a 2-part top. These are being used for the very first time. Keep in mind that with these ball lids, you can only use them once. And so you got to make sure these are brand new ones, or you'd have to get some new ones out of the box. So I'm going to put these on all of our jars. Keep in mind you're not going to tighten these down super hard. You're going to do what they call finger tight, which is just basically how much you would tighten it just with your hand, not getting crazy about it. Hold on. Okay, so now we've got tops on all the jars, and I'm going to start putting them in the pressure canner. A couple things to note. It's really important to have this plate in the bottom. It keeps the jars from touching the bottom of the container, which is super important because you don't want your jars to break. And what I'm using, this was a purchase from Winn-Dixie. It's a Presto 16. And one really super important thing to note, even if you don't remember anything else I say, remember that you have to use a pressure canner when it comes to canning meat. You absolutely cannot use a water bath canner. And the reason is, one, the meat has a very low acidic level. And for a water bath canner, you need a high acidic level. But since we've got a low one, we've got to use a pressure canner. Also, the pressure canner is going to be, you'll see in a few minutes, it's going to be closed. And it's going to build up, use air pressure to raise the boiling point to 240 degrees. And that will effectively kill any of the nasties in our chicken. And two things are going to happen. One, it's going to force the oxygen out of these cans, and it's going to hermetically seal it, and plus the insides will be sterile too. So this is how you got to do it for meat. There's just no two ways about it. If you do a water bath canner, the optimum temperature, the highest temperature it's going to get to is 212 degrees, whereas with this, with the air pressure, is going to drive the boiling point up to 240 degrees, which is what we need for meat. Okay, so now I'm putting my cold jars in cold water because I'm kind of starting the whole process from scratch. Well, once I add in all of the jars, then we'll start heating things up. So hold on while I stick all the jars in here. Okay, so we got all the jars in now, and my canner will accept 10 pint jars in here. So that's what I've got in here is 10 pint jars. And incidentally, the 9 pounds of chicken exactly filled the 9 pint jars. It was more or less 9 pounds, but thereabouts. But anyway, you get the idea. So now we're going to close this up and start our process. And the first thing we have to do is put the top on. So here's my top. A couple things to note. This is where the pressure is going to be coming out during the process. This is your emergency escape valve. If the pressure gets dangerously high inside the pressure cooker, this will pop out to relieve pressure. And then over here, this is a safety mechanism that once the pressure builds to a certain point, this will pop out and lock the jar in place, because this fits into this little piece over here. Okay, so now we're going to put the top on. And of course, always look through this middle thing here to make sure it's not blocked. I can see the microwave through it, so we're good. And so I'm going to turn it over. And it's got these arrows. I don't know if you can see it. Right here, maybe, yeah, there you go. It says open, close, and that's going to match up with this place here. So, I'm matching up. There. And then I'm going to turn this, and this locks the whole thing closed for me. And now we're going to turn the heat on. And notice I haven't put any weights on here yet. That comes later. So I'm going to turn the heat on. And I do it at 7.5. That's what works for my stove. You have to find what works for your stove. And so now we've got to wait for it to get hot in there. And it's got to, what we got to wait for is, see this guy here? We want to wait for it to get hot enough that I have steam, like a visible plume of steam coming up out of there. That's when we're going to start counting, our first count. So we're going to pause until then. I decided to stop working. Now it's working again. Okay, so you got this thing right here. This is the weight that's going to go on the pressure cooker. actually I should say pressure canner, once the pressure builds. Remember, we've got our steam coming out. I don't know if you can see that. It's like a column of steam shooting out of the top of the pressure canner. Like I said, this is venting the oxygen. It took us about 25 minutes to get to this point, 29 minutes, thereabouts. And we've also got, I'm not going to touch it because it's hot, but over here, that thing right there, see how it's sticking out? That is a safety feature that now that the pressure is building inside, it is locking it closed, so there's no way we could open it and injure ourselves. So we're continuing to wait on the time. I think we started timing this at 4:27, so it's been 5 minutes. We're going to let it vent for another 5 minutes, 10 minutes total, so that we vented the air out of it, and then we're going to add on our weight. Now this is what they call a 3-part weight. 3-part because, well, it comes in 3 pieces. And so what it is, you've got that ring there, and you got this ring here, and then you have the base piece. And what happens is, just this guy by itself is 5 pounds of pressure, and then each one you adds another 5 pounds of pressure. So if I did all 3 of them together, that'd be 15 pounds of pressure, but I don't need that much. I'm just using 10 pounds of pressure today. So I'm going to take this guy, whoa, getting crazy there, and stick that on there. And whenever we've had our 10 minutes of the steam venting, then we're going to put on our pressure guy. This is kind of tricky because you got to put this on top of this thing where a bunch of hot steam is pouring out of. Okay, maybe you can see it better now. Kind of. Oh well. Okay, so, but because I'm a little bit of a scaredy cat, and I like my fingers without second-degree burns, I'm going to use something like this to put it in place. So grab that, maybe. And when the time comes, I'm going to do that, put it on top of that stem right there. So I'm going to pause for a minute here for the 10 minutes to elapse, and then we'll come back for the exciting moment that we put the weights on. So stay put. Okay, so now we have been venting for about 10 minutes. Super important. And now we're going to take the weight and very carefully put it on top of the stem with the boiling hot steam coming out. Needless to say, be super careful. So I kind of grab it sideways like this. There we go. It's on there. Okay, so now kind of the next exciting thing that happens is, since we've covered up the vent and the steam is no longer coming out, the pressure will continue to build. And so how that pressure will escape in a healthy and not tearing up my kitchen kind of way is that this weight will start to rock back and forth. And we want it to be rocking gently and not like frantically like it's about to blow up. And, I mean, don't get like scared or anything, because today's pressure canners are so much more safer than ones in the past, and I'm just kind of trying to be funny when I say about it blowing up. It was not really going to blow up. I mean, it could if I did something stupid, but I kind of like my kitchen the way it is, so I'm not going to do something stupid. Alright, so we're going to take a little pause here, and once it starts rocking gently, I'll come back and show you what that looks like. Hey, just real quick, while we're waiting for the weight to start rocking gently, I wanted to show you, this is the book that I go by, the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. I've had it for a while. It's a great source. It's considered an authoritarian source. Maybe that's the wrong word. Maybe authoritative would be the right word. Yeah, that's what it is. Anyway, this is the people to come to for questions about home preserving. There's also a national food preservation site on the internet, and I can't find that. Anyway, there's also a Ball Blue Book, which is also very good. You just got to be careful who you turn to for advice on how to do things. There are some folks, bless their little hearts, just have some unsafe practices that they've been lucky with so far, and so they think that's okay to do it that way, and it's not. So, Alright, so hold on, we're still waiting on the rocker to start going back and forth, rocking gently, so just stay tuned.